Hey y'all. So this one's going to be a bit more rambly than my other stuff, which can you believe it? But I've been thinking about this for a bit. It's in relation to the Daniel Craig like Bond storyline. Um, and I feel like there's different ways they could have approached this to where like people would have been a bit more happy on how it ended and how it went. Because the general consensus from what I gather is, and it's kind of mine too, is that once like it kind of that Skyfall kind of like separates the two like other films, like the two other stories, and like doesn't the connections kind of felt tacked on, and it kind of just went its crazy way. Um, and there's an easy way to do it, and there's a couple interesting ways I think would have been fine. And for me, the most obvious or like more interesting one is to essentially connect all the movies together in a weird way, sort of, but have them be book adaptations. So you keep Casino Royale the way it is. You instead of having Le Chiffre be like connected with Quantum, you can still be maybe connected with Quantum, but like at least hint maybe like oh he's connected with this group called Spectre. Like lay that groundwork from the beginning. Have the second movie be instead of Quantum be like Live and Let Die or something else, another, or even maybe like do Thunderball early, where it's like a person who's also financing, and yet another person financing this group that he has to stop. And also, you can do an adaptation of Live and Let Die that's not as problematic. Um, and then have the third one be like, if you want the third one to be um, Thunderball or something like have something like where you actually start to see Blofeld. And then you can have On Her Majesty's be the fourth. With the fourth one being On Her Majesty's, you can have the final one be you have the final movie be You Only Live Twice. So then you have that same kind of ending, same kind of emotional impact where like the final movie ends with Bond not only beating and killing Blofeld, but having him like pretty much live his life like in Japan or something. Like you don't go the full book route. Like you change the part where like he gets amnesia and like gets all that happens to him. You can have him just live in Japan and be like, I've done what I need to do. I'm retired. This is it. Whatever. Um, the other way you can do it, like you can have a third movie, like not necessarily be Thunderball, because Thunderball has had its adaptations twice, and both of them are not great. You could probably do like Moonraker, I think would be really interesting. And if you did Moonraker either third or second, you can have the book version where he comes out like damaged, like hospitalized for a long time. And then so then that explains a bit of like Skyfall's issue where he's like all old and people are like, why is he old and out of like sync? Like that would help with that. And it also would bring in line the whole book adaptation stuff because I feel like that's what they wanted to do in the beginning, but then they just completely abandoned that once Quantum hit. Um, the other way, and if they really wanted to really easily do this, is once again kind of like you set up the first two movies where both guys are connected with Quantum. Um, and then you set up like with by the end of Quantum, like if you want to keep Quantum Solace, the second movie, by the end of that one, you say, oh, Quantum, like they were working for this other group called Spectre, like then once again laying the groundwork, so it's not as out of the blue. And then you say that Silva with Skyfall is part of Spectre, so once again keeping the same kind of vibes. Um, but at the end of Spectre, you treat Spectre kind of like a mix of On Her Majesty's um and You Only Live Twice. So you kind of combine those two, have that one be a long one. Um, and he beats Blofeld. Like Blofeld dies first movie. I don't think some people will be annoyed by that, but I think like given Blofeld's appearances in the original movies, besides You Only Live Twice, his and the ending of On Her Majesty's, like those two are the only ones that are like really Blofeld important. But then you could have the fifth movie as like kind of what they intended originally to just be a straight up adaptation of Doctor No. Um, and then you could bookend. You could literally bookend like the Craig movies that way, with beginning with the movie, the book beginning of Bond, and the original movie beginning of Bond. That would be an interesting way to go about it. But I still think like having all of them connected within the books, and like do the book adaptations and have them all be part of like the Spectre like thing. Because within the books, Lashif and Mr. Big and all of them like originally served Smirsh. And Smirsh got taken down, and then Spectre just kind of filled its place. And Spectre within the books and even within the original movies, only was like three movies. In the movies, it kind of got extended to Diamonds, but Diamonds is his own craziness. But like in the movies, you had four because you had Thunderball. Technically, they kind of hinted that Blofeld was also part of From Russia, which you could have From Russia be part of it too. That would have been interesting. Like, let's say Skyfall was from Russia, which I think was that they were kind of going with. But if they had, because Skyfall is kind of a mix of From Russia and uh, GoldenEye in a sense, at least in terms of the villain. But within the original movies, um, Blofeld kind of sort of appears in From Russia. So essentially, Blofeld is kind of in five and six movies because mainline, somewhat rough from Russia, but um, uh, Thunderball, On Her Majesty's, You Only Live Twice, and Diamonds. And then very beginning of, I think, Octopussy. Um, it's been a bit. Those kind of blend together. I think it's Octopussy. Um, and his appearances get less and less important. Um, but I feel like if they really wanted him to be the main villain, they needed to plant the seeds more so. I really feel like they just didn't have a good game plan. And to be fair, the books are related, but they're not like you don't necessarily need to read every book in order and like to get some things. Like you can pick it up and stuff. Like I would say the only books you would need to read in order are Thunderball, Majesties, You Only Live. Like those three are connected. And those like the emotional beats within those are important. Like they do start to get a bit more serialized, but in the beginning you can kind of pick it up and be fine. Like you don't need to start with Casino Royale within the books. But but also in the same hand, you don't start with like one of the last ones either. But like those, that's probably my biggest way I would have done it is do it through the books and change Smirch straight up to like either Quantum or Spectre from the beginning, and just have him taking out people who are underlings of Blofeld and just see that in the whole time. Um, you can have Doc. Actually, yeah, you could have Doctor No fill in the position of On Her Majesty's and have On Her Majesty still kind of end the same way it does. Um, and then have that last movie be You Only Live. Um, and then you could actually have Bond die at the end because there is a brief period in the book, like a chapter or two, where like a chapter where you think that Bond's dead. Um, and that could work. That could be the case. So like my ideal version of this, thinking about it now, would be you start a casino. The chief works for either Quantum or Spectre from the beginning. Then you have like maybe a you Live and Let Die, or maybe Moonraker, or maybe a like one of those two, where it's like a financing thing again, or like another person just trying to do something big, and Bond has to stop them. They also work for Spectre or Quantum. With the third movie either being the third one could either be from Russia, so it's a more heavy spy movie sent by Blofeld to try and kill Bond after he's gotten rid of two of his big agents. That could work. And then he's invested. Then the fourth movie is essentially Doctor No mixed with On Her Majesty's, where he falls in love with. They can have it still be Madeline, or they can have him be Tracy, either which. If they don't want the baggage of Tracy, they can switch to Madeline. And then have the virus thing. All of that still plays the same as On Her Majesty's, but he work in Doctor No too. And then the final movie is the Poison Garden aspect and stuff of um, You Only Live. You take away if you were doing You Only Live Twice again, I would say obviously you take away the Japanese base aspect, because that is a problem. You take that away and you make it the revenge story, and then he either retires at the end or dies. But like I feel like if they really wanted to make him worn out and tired in the third one, you would have Moonraker be the second movie, because then he would be damaged by then. You could also do if you were going to have let's say from Russia as the third movie, then the fourth movie he could be damaged and beat up because he faced a opponent as strong and as like mentally and physically vicious as he is. Um, which I think they kind of wanted to do, but they didn't really figure it out very well. Um, yeah, I think those could work, but let me know what you think, how you would have changed it, or if you would have changed them at all. Um, till then.